Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO podcast. I am your host, Hannah Chapman, and this is I'm going to say special Investment Friday episode or Financial Friday episode. I'm coming to you solo for today. Brad Haynes is not joining us this week. And so I actually thought this was a good opportunity to talk about something that is vulnerable, something that a lot of people experience and feel a lot of shame and humiliation around, and something that I went through myself very recently, and that is financial scams, financial fraud. And I'm going to preface this by saying that this is, for me, being a financial advisor, being taught for, decade now, decade plus, 15, gosh, probably even 15 years, right? Being taught how to recognize scams, being taught how to recognize phishing, phishing, phishing scams in email. Knowing I pride myself in the fact that, like, I can recognize phishing emails, and that, I know not to ever click on a link from someone that I don't recognize or know. And also, not to fall for anything, if it's coming from my bank, like, nope, unless, I'm not going to click on any of those links. I'm going to go straight to my bank's website and look for anything I need to find there in their message center, all of those things. And I'm going to say those are good practices, right? And that is normal, that is typical, um, and something that we all need to be aware of in this age of, just how easy it is to replicate data and replicate emails and replicate, what people see, from PayPal, as well. That's actually another scam that's been going around recently that I can talk about as well. But saying before that, pride always comes before a fall. Um, Having felt like I was not in danger of being scammed in a financial way. I was, like, really, truly shocked and felt really, really bad. Felt really, really bad to be scammed. Defrauded is actually the right word for this, right? This is fraudulent behavior, defrauded out of money this past week. So I am sharing this, and honestly, it feels vulnerable. It feels vulnerable to share. Um, and I know that that means this is something that's really, really important for me to share, because it feels vulnerable, because it feels, like something that is like, oh my gosh, that's humiliating. Why would I fall victim to something like that? So that's why I want to share, because sometimes these things happen in such a way that it's hard to catch until it's happened, and then you realize. So let's back up. I'm going to tell the story. And if you can watch on YouTube, or I'm going to encourage you to go over to YouTube and see what I'm going to share. I'm actually going to share the email that I received, the quote unquote confirmation email that I received, so I can show you some of the telltale signs that when I looked quickly, I didn't, something looked off to me, but I didn't quite catch it. I didn't look closely enough. Um, and so now looking back, like, okay, here are the blazing red flags that I can point out that, hopefully someone else will see in an email as well. And then the sum of the messages from Facebook that went back and forth that were, again, like, all right, here were the flags. Here were the flags that I was ignoring. So what happened was last week, I saw a post from a friend of a friend on Facebook. Now, when I say a friend of a friend, I mean this woman was someone who I, was a friend with people that I know in person, not like have known on the internet, right? These are people, my friends are friends that I know in person, that I know well, people that I trust. And this other woman, um, is someone that has actually been recommended to me. She's happens to be a massage therapist. She's someone that had been recommended to me before. And so for me, seeing this post on her Facebook page, she's a friend of a friend. I know of her because she's been recommended to me before, and the people that I know personally have spoken highly of her. And so she posted that she had Taylor Swift tickets for sale, and she had good tickets, couldn't go to an upcoming show in November, close to me in Indianapolis. Again, so I want to paint the picture so all of these details start to make sense. Close to me, Indianapolis. It's only like an hour and a half away. Um, Coming up in a couple of months, November 2nd, I think was the date. And that she was selling the tickets. She didn't want to make money off of it. She just wanted someone else to have the tickets because she couldn't go. And she had 4 tickets to sell. And my daughter, my youngest daughter, Hazel, has been wanting to go to an Eras Tour show for, like the last year and a half. Last year, she really wanted to go. And at that time, I think the only tickets I could get were somewhere in like the $1,500 per ticket range for the show in Cincinnati, where I live. And that just did not feel like an appropriate use of at least, $3,000 for me and her to go at the time. We had other stuff that we were paying for, and like it didn't feel good. And I told her, hey, if I can get tickets maybe for next year, that might be something that we can do because that would be fun. I would love to take you to a Taylor Swift concert. That would be super fun. So here I see on Facebook that a friend of a friend, someone who has been recommended to me before, someone who I think is safe to trust, um, posts that she has tickets that she wants to sell and, put her number on there. So I sent her a note on Facebook via Facebook Messenger and said, hey, I'm interested in 2 tickets. Would you be, how much are they? How much are you selling them for? And she wrote back $500 a piece. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, still, that's a good amount of money, but I can swing that. That would be great. I would be like, I'm sitting here feeling excited that I might be able to take my daughter to the Taylor Swift concert and, have a whole fun weekend. And it's in Indianapolis. So we would go and we would stay the night. And yeah, I was like already painting this picture of how fun that would be. And so I talked to my husband. My husband was home. I talked to him about it. I told him the same, like, oh, this is a friend of a friend. I like no, I know these people I'm friends with really well, and they've recommended this person before. I feel like I can trust this person. And he was like, "Oh, well, yeah, that sounds great. That would be super fun. You should go. Do you think, our oldest daughter would want to go too?" And so I was like, "Well, I think so." And that it would be a fun girls' weekend, and then he could do something with our son, and they could have a boys' weekend, and that would be really fun. So I was like, "Okay, well, what about 3? Would you be willing to sell 3 tickets?" I went back and asked her, "Can I buy 3 tickets?" She said, "Yeah, that'll be fine. I'll try to sell the other ticket. Would you like to buy that 4th ticket for a discounted price? Because I don't know if I'll be able to sell it by itself." Yada yada yada. I said, "No, just the 3. That's all I want." And so as we're going through this interaction, this is what's in my head. Like, this is Like, okay, that's normal. She's asking me to pay her via Apple Pay. Okay. Well, I try to put in her email in Apple Pay and it's not working. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. It's not, it's not allowing me. There's a message coming up. And she said, send me a screenshot. Send me a screenshot when you've sent the money. I was like, there's a problem happening. It's not working. Okay, send me a screenshot. So I'm sending her screenshots. And then I was like, okay, I don't think this is going to work. Can I send it to you, another way? So I asked about Zelle, which, I use with my bank. She's like, sure, we can try that. So I tried that. It sent and then it was rejected and it came back to my bank account. Um, so that was interesting. I was like, oh, okay. Again, I'm still here thinking that this is a friend of a friend. And so I was like, what about PayPal? Can we try PayPal? Um, and they kind of complained about that a little bit. We're like, yeah, sure, we can try that. So my flags, my spy, everything was kind of like on alert at this point. But I was still trusting. I would like my trust button was still like lit up. I'm like, okay, this is, this person, she seems a little like aggressive here. Like I'm feeling like a little bit of pressure and aggressiveness coming through with like, send me a screenshot, like send it here, send it there. Um, okay, that's feeling a little weird, but I'm still trusting. And so she gives me the PayPal address and it goes to a name that's not her name. And I was like, that seems weird. And she asked me to just send 500 instead of the full 1500. It's like, okay, well, I'll try that. And then she wanted me to send it to okay, send the next 500 to this. And it was a different name. I would show these screenshots too, but it's like the messages, long story short, this was not the right person. So there's the spoiler alert. We'll get there in a minute. But so the messages, these ones that I'm talking about, they've been deleted, right? The message is unavailable now because the profile has been taken down. So, they're saying, yeah, that's right. PayPal is kind of tough. That's my husband's, PayPal. Go ahead and send it to that person. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. As we keep going, we try one more time with Apple Pay. That ends up working. And so I send the money, I send $500 through PayPal, and then I get another message, and I am going to share this screenshot. Um, as I find it quickly here, I think it's this one. So I sent $500 via PayPal, and I'm going to share again. So if you're on YouTube, I'm going to share my screen um, and show you what I was doing or what the interaction that was happening. And I've blacked out the person's name and picture because this was not them. This is not that person. So it says, "Hey Hannah, did you get a refund from PayPal?" I had gotten a text message saying, you've received a refund from PayPal. And I was like, "Yeah, I did see that." And then she said, "Can you transfer it via Apple Pay instead?" "Yes, I can do that now." "Show me the screenshot when sent." Okay, so I sent that. Um, so I want to reiterate that I had sent $500 via PayPal. I had also sent $1,000 via Apple Pay and then got this text message, quote unquote, text message from PayPal that ended up not being from PayPal. And so I then sent another $500 via Apple Pay. And this was like, okay, this feels fine, but like, it doesn't feel good, but something, I don't know, like, we're good. It's fine. I've sent the money. And then I had received also the email that said your tickets have been transferred into my email. And I thought that was fine. And then I got another message from the seller that says, later on in the afternoon. Not that much later, but just a little bit later. Says, "All right, great. Will you purchase the last ticket?" I said, "Not now, but I'll let you know if anyone I know wants it." Couple hours later, "All right, Hannah, can you lend me $1,000 till I get my check later this evening?" And it was that message where my stomach just dropped. And actually, what I felt was like heat all across my chest. This sense of deep, like, oh my God, I have just been completely scammed. This is not the person. This is not her. This is absolutely wrong. This is completely not appropriate. And as I realized this, as I started to feel hot, feel like that heat across my chest, literally like my armpits sweating, starting to feel like nauseous, I said no. And I'm feeling really bad about this interaction right now. And I'm afraid that I just got scammed out of $2,000 and you don't actually have tickets at all. Person says, "OMG, I've sent your tickets. You didn't get scammed." And I knew it. I knew it in my bones. I was like, I just made a terrible mistake. And it was that like, "Can you lend me $1,000 till I get my check later this evening?" And in my mind, I'm like, why on earth would someone who I don't actually know ask me to lend them money for a few hours? Like that doesn't make any sense. Of course it doesn't make any sense because that's not appropriate, right? No one who is no like regular social interaction is going to ask that. So I just realized I shared my screen again for YouTube. Here is that actual interaction. Um, no one's going to do that. So if you've ever had an interaction like this, yeah, like if someone's asking you to lend them money until I get my pay, no, that is a scam. That is absolutely 100% a scam. Um, and so that's, super easy. Should be super easy to recognize, right? Unfortunately, it was after. It was after I had transferred the money. So I want to then, so after I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach, I'm like, this is wrong. This was super wrong. I know this was wrong. I went back to the email that I had received about the confirmation of tickets, and it was so obvious. It was so obvious. And this is the piece where um, I internally felt humiliated. I felt like I can't believe, literally can't believe that I fell for this. And first of all, the email itself looks like medium. If you're looking at it on YouTube, I'm sharing my screen. If you're looking at it, it's like at first glance, literally first just a glance, you're like, all right, like that's an email. When you look any bit closer, there's here in the beginning says, "Note, it may take a while," in parentheses, "hours," and the hours is capitalized, and then, quote, unquote, "probably 24 hours," 24 being 2, 4, and then HRS all squished together, "to get your tickets updated in your Ticketmaster app, comma, you can check it time to time to confirm they are there before the concert day." Listen to that again. Note, it may take a while, hours, quote unquote, probably 24 hours to get your tickets updated in your Ticketmaster app, comma, you can check it time to confirm they are there before the concert day. Now, when you hear that, does that sound like something that a like, I don't know how much business Ticketmaster does, but I would guess billions, multi-billion dollar money flowing through Ticketmaster. Does that sound like something that would come from a company of that size? No, it doesn't, because it wouldn't. And when we look even further through the other red flags that I see, one, there are a lot of capitalized words that should not be capitalized in the middle of sentences. There are um, other things here. So down at the bottom, it says ticketmasterservice.cs@gmail.com. Ticketmaster does not have a gmail.com address. Ticketmaster is ticketmaster.com, right? It'd be service at ticketmaster.com or info at ticketmaster.com. It's not going to be a Gmail address. So those were the biggest. One is the any grammatical errors that you see in an email, and then really scrutinizing the email addresses that things are coming from. Those are two of your biggest markers, right? Because if it's coming from legitimately coming from Ticketmaster, or if it's legitimately coming from PayPal, the grammar is going to be impeccable, right? They have people, tons of people, um, doing that work. So it's not going to be grammatically incorrect. It's not going to have incorrect capitalizations throughout. It's not going to have missing spaces or extra spaces. Um, so the email itself, when I saw that, I was like, no, no, I am sure that this is a scam at this point. And the final note that I sent to this person was that, that I realized that they were defrauding me. This was fraud, and that I had notified PayPal and Apple Pay and all of these, all of those other places so that um, they couldn't do this anymore. And sure enough, like hours later, the profile was completely taken down on Facebook. And so what had happened was that someone, a scammer from somewhere, I don't know who or from where, had taken over a real Facebook profile. So this was like when I went back and looked, like this was her actual personal Facebook profile. It was connected to her business profile. It had all of her normal, like years of history of her normal posts, her pictures of her family, her videos. It wasn't a recreation of a Facebook page. It wasn't someone who went and, took photos, excuse me, off of someone's Facebook page and then recreated a new one. They stole her Facebook page. And so that's why I made sure to black out the name on those screenshots that I shared, because it's not her. It was not her as a person. It was someone that stole her Facebook page so that they could get to her friends list. That's the scam. That's the actual, let's like the ground zero of the scam, is that they're taking over a real Facebook profile with all of its history, and then going after scamming that person's friends list and close um, people, because this was a friend of a friend, and she was, I could see that she was friends with my friend Lindsay, and I saw the post and I was like, "Oh, yeah. So what were the other markers of this?" It was for a Taylor Swift concert, and it was for, a couple months from now, close to me, right? So this was like a very well thought out scam. It was not for, a Taylor Swift concert in Belgium or a Taylor Swift concert in California or, wherever else she's going to be. It was very targeted to like, okay, I'm going to take over this person's profile and I'm going to do this scam about this Taylor Swift concert that's an hour and a half away from Cincinnati. So all of those things aside, that feeling, the other thing I wanted to talk about. So it if if you have seen that same thing, if you've seen posts on Facebook or anywhere else, it's probably mostly Facebook, I would guess. But these scams of I'm selling tickets that I'm not going to be able to use these. I've seen this before, but I wasn't interested in whatever concert they were talking about, so it didn't register for me that could be a scam. But if you see this anywhere near you, a friend, quote unquote friend, or friend of a friend has tickets, they're not gonna use them, they just wanna sell them for, what they bought them for. My thought is if you don't know this person, if you can't call this person on the phone or, like, literally text this person and then go see them or FaceTime them, then don't do it. Like, just assume that it's a scam and it's not real, right? Like, that's the first piece is that these ticket scams are actually pretty, um, prominent right now, and partially probably because it's not, I wanna say, not talked about as much. And I'm gonna say that because I actually hadn't heard of this. This is one that I had not heard of before it literally happened to me. Um, so yes, be aware that this is a thing, right? People can scam by taking over your Facebook profile. This could also be a reminder to just go change your password and add two-factor authentication to your Facebook profile, um, to make it more difficult for anyone to take over your Facebook page. And to know that it's actually like this is important to share and to know about, and to share with your friends. If someone else says, "Hey, like I could potentially buy these tickets from this person that I kind of know," maybe like ask them, "Are you sure that's real? Are you sure? Do you want to check? Can you call the person? Can you actually talk to them? Is this someone that you could go get coffee with and you actually know them? Because if not, maybe don't do that." Right? The other little aspect in there for me, is if it feels too good to be true, it probably is, right? There's that little nugget that can come up as well that, okay, if I can get Taylor Swift tickets for $500 a piece when the cheapest tickets that are left are around $1,900 for that same concert, um, then that might be too good to be true, right? It's like there are so many aspects that in sharing this, the other aspect that I want to share, the other thing that I want to say is that the emotional reaction that I experienced was so intense. I was so upset. I felt so humiliated. I used that word before, but that was truly the feeling that was coming up for me. Um, it just full shame and guilt. I couldn't like the guilt I felt for having what it felt like I fell for that. I should have known better. I should have seen the signs. I should have listened to myself when it was like I felt that first twinge of like, I don't like the pressure that I'm feeling from this person. I should have stopped. The guilt that I felt was so, so strong. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before as well, and so there's also that feeling of, like, being taken advantage of, feeling so angry that someone would do this, that someone would hurt others in this way, and for me to have been, like, one of those people, um, yeah, just that underlying feeling of shame and guilt was so, so strong. As soon as I realized what had happened, because I had talked to my husband, right, about like, "Oh my gosh, this opportunity is here. This is really exciting. I would love to take Hazel to this concert." And he was like, "Yeah, do it. That sounds great." Um, he trusted me, right? Like, so there was that layer too. Like, he trusted me, and I was wrong, and I got scammed. So one of the very first things I did, he had gone to pick up the kids from school, so he wasn't at the house when I had this realization, and, like, the first thing I did was text him and told him that I think I just got scammed, and I feel really, really bad about it, and I'm so sorry. And his response to me, rather, I'm gonna call it a response because it was so grounded, um, was, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's gonna be okay." and he sent me a little green heart because I sent him red hearts and he sends me green hearts. So he had a little green heart on there for me. And so taking that in, seeing that I was still like my emotional reaction was still like I had to process it. There was a lot to process. A lot of sadness and my inner child, anyone who's worked with me or listened to me in any capacity for more than, one or two podcast episodes has probably heard me talk about inner child work and inner child healing. And my my inner little girl was feeling devastated at having done the wrong thing. Absolutely devastated about having having made a mistake, having messed it up. Just I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. It was like what she was saying, my inner child. And to have my husband come home when he came home, when he got home with the kids, I was upstairs in our room. I was crying. I was so upset. And for him to just hug me and say, "Hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And, you know, I'm saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And him, saying, like, "I am not mad at you. There's nothing for me to be mad at." That my adult self didn't need to hear that necessarily. It was my inner child that really needed that comforting and validation that, "Hey, like, that sucks and that hurts, and there's so much." This was another thing he said was that, "I know there are so many yucky feelings that go with being taken advantage of like that and being scammed, and I don't want you to think me being mad is in there at all. That's not there at all." And so that for me, that was the hard part was to um sit with that like I had to shake it out. What did I do? How did I process that, right? Letting the tears flow, um letting myself cry, literally like shaking out that energy, feeling, shaking my hands, like shaking my arms out, moving my body, and letting that go because it felt like charged energy in my body, right? That I was feeling. Um, but to then not be shamed by my husband was so, so important. Um, and just, it was such a kind reaction from him. So I feel one, extremely blessed. Um, to have a partner who has that level of emotional connection with me and emotional intelligence and um who is not quick to anger. That was not the case growing up in my household. So, like that's where that inner child reaction, that very, very visceral reaction of, oh my God, I've done something wrong. Right? Like, this is not okay. I can't do the wrong thing. I have to be perfect. I cannot mess up or I'm gonna get in trouble, right? That's the panic of that inner child, and to have him come in and validate and be, um, again, to not say, "How could you be so stupid? How could you not see that? All of that was so, so important. And then the second piece is that I also realize how fortunate we are that, the fact that $2,000 was not make or break, right? Because there have been times in our life and times in our marriage where that would have been a devastating amount of money to lose. And I know for a lot of people, that is a devastating amount of money to just have like float off into thin air to never get back again. Because when you transfer something in PayPal to friends and family, or when you transfer something via Apple Cash, that there is no recourse. There is no getting that back. It is gone. And I feel so fortunate and so grateful that that was a minor inconvenience and not a major devastation for us. And that showed, like, for me, that's like that's these, like, last 2 decades of financial growth that we've had as a couple and as a team, um, to get to the place where, like, that, it was more of an emotional piece for me to handle and deal with than a financial hole to have to dig back out of. And so I just, am so, 1, so thankful that that's the case, and 2, um, I think it's so important to share this story and then also share about the shame and the guilt that I felt, because that's what keeps us usually from telling these stories. That's what keeps us from helping others. That's what keeps us from, like, making sure this doesn't go any further, is because, like, if I'm too embarrassed to share about it, then, someone else might have the exact same thing happen to them. The final thing I want to say is that there's a piece of me too that wanted to doubt myself. And that was one of the reasons why I kept going through this transaction, was because when I was feeling like, oh, this something feels wrong, I was doubting. I was doubting myself. I was not trusting that initial, like, stop, done, no more, like, just stop, stop the transaction. Like, just cut it off, say no, go away, go away. I could have. I could have done that at several points before any money was sent. Like, in the first initial, like, "Oh, this isn't working. This isn't working." I could have said, "You know what? I'm feeling a little iffy about this, and now I don't really wanna go through with it anymore," and that would have been fine. It wouldn't have hurt anyone's feelings, especially now after I realized that that wasn't even the person, like, that wasn't a real, that wasn't a person that I know or even could possibly know. That was just someone who stole a Facebook profile, right? But there was that little bit of doubting myself along the way that kept me in the transaction. What if I'm wrong? Yeah, this feels a little bit weird, but what if I'm wrong? And so for me, my learning, what I get to take from this and what I get to move forward with, is that something that I actually tell my clients and that I speak about plenty is to trust your confusion. Trust your confusion. If you feel confused, if something feels unclear, if you don't feel like you understand everything that's going on, especially in a financial transaction. So I'm going to like tie this back heavily, heavily to a financial transaction. If you feel confused, push the brakes all the way. Slam the brakes on to the floor, right? Like, if something is not right, if you are confused, if you feel like something is not moving the way it should, if you're feeling pressured, if it's going too fast, um, if even if just more questions came up in the meantime, if someone is legit, if this is a legitimate business owner or a legitimate transaction, the other person will honor your questions. They will slow down with you. They will honor your confusion. They will provide more clarity. From my side, as a practitioner, as a financial advisor, as a coach, if someone is confused and they need more clarity, I provide more clarity, right? I answer all the questions. There is no question that is off limits. There is no question that is annoying. Um, if it gets to the point where someone, like, if they're asking for clarity on, I don't know, I can't even think of an example where that it would be inappropriate, right? If it gets to the point where I'm feeling like, okay, maybe we're not a good fit to work together, I might say that, right? If the questions are like in worded in a way or asked, in a way where it's starting to feel, where the interaction for me doesn't feel good anymore, right? Like that can happen. But if someone has questions about, okay, wait, I just had a question about the way that I charge for financial planning, right? There's different ways that we pay for it. Part of it is business financial planning and it's paid for through the business. Part of it is personal financial planning and it's paid for personally. Why is that? Right? Someone had a question like, "Oh, I just want to understand better." Great. Thank you for asking that question. It's because the IRS does not allow you to deduct personal financial planning. It does allow you to deduct business financial planning. So we need to separate that out so that you can see that, so that if you were to get audited, which hopefully that's not the case, but if you were to get audited, when the IRS comes back and looks at this transaction, they're not going to disallow the entire thing because there was for personal financial planning included in this document, right? There's a lot of business. There's business and there's personal. So we're going to actually pay for both sides of it. That was a really good question for that person to ask and important for me to clarify so that when they go to their bookkeeper or their CPA at the end of the year, they can say, okay, here's the business transaction, here's the personal transaction. That kind of thing needs to be clear. I am happy, always, always happy to provide more clarity. So if you are getting pushed through a transaction and especially like pressured, where's the money? Send it now, send it to this place. Like, I don't know, right? You're going to feel it. You're going to know when it feels bad. So trust your confusion and ask for more clarity. And if someone doesn't want to give clarity, or if you're not comfortable with their answer for whatever reason, it is within um, your right and your prerogative, really, to honor that feeling inside of you of like, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. And that's the main thing, right? That's the main thing is that like if anything feels wrong, you are allowed to say, we're done. And on the other side of that, if you have been the victim of a financial scam, if you have thought that everything was on the up and up and it was fine, and then you find out later that you were scammed and you feel that sense of anger or grief or shame or guilt or humiliation or whatever that feeling is, I just want you to know that that's okay. It's okay, right? To feel those feelings and let yourself process that feeling. Let yourself process it. Don't let it get stuck. If we shove it down and we just like refuse to feel it, it's going to get stuck and it's going to cause resentment and it's going to cause more pain in the future. And the last piece, the very last piece, and then I'll wrap it up for today, is just to honestly learn from my husband's response because he handled that with so much kindness, so much grace, so much love, and with so much truth, right? He said, it's okay. It's going to be fine. That's not a make or break amount of money. We're going to be fine. And that was true, right? If it had, let's say it was $100,000, like, all right, that's, that hurts, that hurts more. And that would have been a fully different situation, right? Like there are so many, I don't even want to like, um, really think about that, but there, even in that case, if it truly is a case of fraud or, someone scamming you, that just that responding with love, responding to what the person is experiencing rather than reacting to, the situation itself is so important for a relationship. And to work on it like, okay, we're going to work on it together, right? It's me and you versus the problem. It's not you versus me. right? There, it's always, coming back to that teamwork. So, um, just really, yeah. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you and I love you. And I am very hopeful that me having gone through this experience, and talking about it, choosing to talk about it, choosing to be vulnerable about it, will stop others from being taken advantage of by this same scam or something similar, right? Especially on Facebook. So again, that big message here is, the Facebook scam of a friend, or even it could be a friend that someone's Facebook page being taken over by someone who is a scammer who is looking to get you to buy something because they're a friend, right? That's the scam. So I would love to hear if you have ever experienced something like this, or have seen any other, like, are there other financial scams that you are seeing that are relatively new? I would say this ticket one is probably has probably been around for a really long time. Like, scalpers and people selling fake tickets have been around forever. I don't want to pretend like that's not that hasn't been happening. But this particular flavor of it, of someone taking over a Facebook profile, um, that's like the different nuance here. So if there's something else that you want to share, like something that has happened to you, um, so that other people, again, in the spirit of, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. I want our eyes to be open. I want us to know without fear, without creating a sense of, being worried about everything that happens. But again, with the sense of, hey, if your spidey senses go up, listen to that. If your intuition goes off like alarm bells, listen to that. That's happening for a reason, okay? We can still trust in life, we can still trust in our friends, and verify when these types of things are happening. If it's a friend that and they're, something feels a little off about their Facebook profile, text them, call them, email them, whatever, however you actually interact with that person, right? Just check on them. It's a great way to end that. And um, if you've ever had anything happen to a family member, that you want to share, like, I would, send your stories. We'll talk about it. I don't want to do like a whole series about financial scams, but I know there are so many out there, and I am absolutely willing to do another episode where it's like, okay, here are a few others that have been happening recently that people have had feelings about, right? Um, and who have been affected by, and who it's affected, their family in some way. So share, let's all share, and just know that it's not, again, it's not your fault. And it's really important for us to all pull together and keep each other safe. So thank you as always for listening. I know this was a different type of investment Friday, financial Friday than usual. But I truly, truly hope it helps. And if you have anything you want to share, you can email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com. And we will be back on Tuesday with an awesome interview episode, and next Friday for another update. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com, and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.